Brian's here too.
Brian Hodgkiss.
Yeah. How do I make this?
I have started recording.
I see it. I
which
couldn't
you
find
probably
my
heard.
cursor to turn that
Yep.
off. So happy Wednesday. No, that's my language class. Happy Saturday, everybody, or early Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and we don't have any Europeans with us yet. And early morning Sunday for our Australian friends. Which way is the wind blowing, Brian? We have.
I think it's fairly calm at the moment. Fairly calm.
We have a presenter that hasn't joined us before. This gentleman is. He's been calling for 47 years, travels extensively around the U.S. calls basic through A2, does recordings on Blue Star. He's member of Caller Lab, member of the Board of Governors of Caller Lab, currently vice chairman of the Board of Governors of Caller Lab. He's primary author of Caller Lab's Square Dance Marketing Manual, which is the part of his brain we are going to pick today. And in his spare time, he has a full-time job for iHeartMedia. His spare time. You're advertising that. Good.
Got to wear the brand.
He's been working for 31 years in the business of marketing, is currently a market president for, I didn't quite understand. Do they have separate marketing groups, or are you?
Yeah, I can explain that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Anyway, iHeartMedia, which I wasn't that familiar with until I started thinking about it, but I looked and they've got, among other things, 860 radio stations around the country. So his influences a lot of people. And as I think I mentioned last week or recently, I like to bring in people who have outside experience, outside of square dancing experience, so we don't hear just the same thing over and over again, but get an outside view of it. And it's especially good if that person also understands square dancing and combine them. And this gentleman's calling experience and marketing experience make a great combination. So without my further talking, let's have a big hand from Kansas, Mike Hogan. It's all yours, Mike.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm not from Kansas.
Oh.
I'm from Nebraska.
Nebraska.
It's all right. It's all right. But I think the reason you got that is when we talked, I was just going to Kansas to visit my son. So I know where that stuck in your head from.
Well, there's the East Coast, West Coast, and then
there's all this muddle in the middle. Yeah.
Makes it easier to travel around the country.
For those of you from Australia, it's just in the middle of the country of the United States. So, by the way, a lot of faces on here that I have heard of over the years, seen on social media platforms, all of that kind of stuff. It's just nice to actually see the real person. So welcome. In terms of, I do have a presentation that I want to go through. Don, how much time do I have?
Well, in reality, as long as you want, but we try for half an hour, 35 minutes, and then open to discussion. Some people have run out of words at 15 minutes. Some people, I tried to hint that they should stop at an hour, and then we have the discussion afterwards.
Okay.
So it's whatever you need to give us your wisdom. And
then I'll jump in. I recommend that you put your finger on the shut up Mike Hogan button, because once I get going, I get going. And I do want, I want to be able to have some Q&A. So let me share my screen.
Hey, we have a presentation.
We have a whole screen. There we go.
Yeah, you gotta hit the right buttons. All right, so this is pretty much. I have done this presentation a few times now, and every time I do it, I tweak a few things of it, but the story really doesn't change. But because this is more of an invite of just to talk marketing, there's a lot of marketing stuff in here, and there's a lot of things that are above and beyond some things that I think people usually expect when they ask me about marketing. I think when they ask me about marketing, they want to know if I'm going to use TikTok to promote square dancing. How do I do that? All the mechanics and why and that kind of stuff. Honestly, I do very little of that. If you wanted me to attach a reader device onto your website and identify 50% of the people that went to your website and then interface it with the US Postal Service database, and then once the IP phone stops for 8 hours, I can identify exactly where you live, which means I know who you are, and have a picture of the front of your house, and then I can market to you on social media, and I can send emails to email marketing, and I actually, it's creepy, I can do all of that. But when I say I can do that, Mike Hogan can't. You know, for what I do for a living, I have, and I'll tell you a little bit about the company. So iHeartMedia is North America's largest media company. Don did a little homework and saw that iHeartMedia does own 860 radio stations, traditional broadcast radio stations. The reason that I'm a market president is each town, big or small, is its own market, and they have a president. So think of it as general manager. It's the same basic position. So I manage 8 radio stations between 2 markets. That's the radio side. And then I call it one box on our train of boxcars. It's one box or one boxcar. When you get into the digital space, digital is this world that's huge today, and our company is a major player in most of those spaces. So what I usually focus on is with clients is processes, not so much the specific tactics that we might use, but the top level down of how your business is run. And so I focus on some of that, and it's in here. And I have, as Don said, I have 47 years in square dance calling. And so I actually I'm kind of a unique beast because my real job is all in the marketing profession. I just happen to know a lot about square dancing. So it's a nice blend. Okay, so that's who I am, and that's who I work for. Okay, so you may have heard the statement: a problem well solved is or a problem well stated is half solved. So I'm gonna go through some of these slides fairly quickly. So rather than like digging into too deep about who's in charge, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna pretend that you're in charge. Okay, you get to make the decisions. I want you to think. I've had pushback from callers and dancers sometimes that says square dancing isn't a business. Don't look at it like a business. I understand the whole social. We don't do it because we want to make lots of money. We also don't do it because we want to go extinct. So you have to look at it with a business acumen to some extent to be able to make decisions that are smart for the future of our dance activity. Okay, so today I'm going to make you the president. I don't know if we have any Mrs. or Mrs. on the presentation today, but they want to leave anybody out. So you're president of square dance. This is your business for today. You own it. If it's successful, you get to pay your mortgage and send your kids to college and eat steak on Saturdays. And if it's not successful, you get to live in a van down by the river. Okay. So I need you to think about it in that regard. Okay. It's got to succeed or you won't be able to pay your mortgage. So how's business doing, Mr. or Miss Business Owner? Demand's down. Customer base is unable
Crap.
to dance. Was that commentary or?
That was commentary.
Okay, got it. It was either that or you spilled coffee on your jeans. I wasn't sure. Okay, so customer base is unable to dance as often as in the past, right? And we've seen this decline for years. Declining population due to health reasons, dance venues, callers, everything's too expensive. Dancers don't want to hold office. We got clubs folding. They got tons of money. They don't get it. They don't have anybody that wants to be the president or book the callers or book the venue. They can't get people to take lessons. You can't get big enough crowds to pay your bills. Not true, by the way. I'll come back to that later. Bottom line, there aren't enough current square dancers. Well, I'll agree with that, especially when we look at what it used to be. I know some of you guys, Don, I know, Don, you've called forever. I know Daryl has called forever. Dan, I know you've been calling, but not forever. And then, so there's a variety, but many of you are going to recognize the history, or that not the history of square dancing. So you have the same working knowledge that I have. And now we have this new problem that happened for a few years called COVID, right? And so what we didn't know at the time is it shut down our business, right? We knew that. What we didn't know was how long before your business would reopen. And by the way, this is no different than any business operator that I work with. They had these same issues, except they didn't have square dance callers, of course. So businesses were shut down. Most businesses are open now. And what at least my experience with, as I've been calling a lot of square dances now for the last year and a half, 2 years. And I'm pretty much up to full speed. I have been probably the last 6 months. I'm seeing, I just gut is about 2/3 of our dancers. I'm seeing 2/3 to about 3/4 of the dancers that we had are actually coming back. I actually think that's better than what I thought COVID would do to square dancing. It's not good, but I'm just curious, how many other people are seeing those kinds of numbers. The other thing that I'm seeing is we definitely lost callers, but I'm not seeing that we lost near the percentage of callers that we did in terms of percentage of dancers. So that's kind of what I'm seeing the results at this point. Okay, so let's talk marketing versus promoting. So when I say that I have somebody that wants me to just give them the answer, if you'll do A, B, and C, the whole world of square dancing will be better again. And I'm afraid it's not that simple. In the marketing world, what we really do, and I tell my clients this, I tell my salespeople this, it's kind of a equation. And the equation, which sounds really simple, is you put the right message, in my world, because it's radio. You say the right thing to the right people often enough, and you'll get results. Each one of those, what's the right thing? Who are the right people? How often is often enough? Those are very gray matter areas. What is the right thing to say? Who are the right people? How often is often enough? And it has a lot to do with what you're trying to get accomplished. It has a lot to do with how well your brand is perceived in the marketplace. It has to do with product launches, a whole bunch of things that go into it. But the reason that I bring that up is there isn't a one size fits all. There isn't a do TikTok videos once a week and your dance floor will be full again. It just doesn't work that way. So I spend a lot of time on marketing theory, and I provide as much information as I can to let people make their own choices about what kind of tactics they want to use to do marketing. Okay, so, and marketing is a whole lot more than just running commercials on a radio station. So Difference between marketing and promoting is that promotions are a set of activities set to communicate brand or service, with the goal of the promotion is to increase awareness, create interest, and generate sales and create brand loyalty. Whereas promotion is a higher level of that. Promotion is just one of the elements of overall marketing. So marketing itself has a whole lot of pieces to it. Some of you have probably heard of the 4 Ps. So it's product, price, place, promotion. If you have a marketing plan, you might have heard of this, the 4 Ps and the D. The first P is the plan: product, price, distribution, promotion. All of those things go into it. So I know, Larry Marquise, you know the answer to this. Don't answer it. Everybody else, anybody raise their hand or just take your mute off and answer the question. Consumers buy a product or service for only one of 2 reasons. It's only 2 reasons why somebody buys a product or service. Anybody? What are they?
Because they want it.
Because they want it.
Price
Yeah.
and product.
Or
Price and product.
Or need it.
or they need it. That's it. They either want it or they need it. Right? We don't buy these cute little cylindrical things of paper that we hang because we want to decorate our bathroom, right? And then the world runs out of toilet paper and then we have crisis on our hands. That's a need product. Now, we might buy different colors. Cars are a need product and a want product. So we have to have transportation. We got to get from A to B. I know people that don't own a car. They ride their bike. They ride the train. They have different ways of getting around. But most folks own a vehicle of some kind. And I correlate often, and when I'm teaching the automotive industry with square dancing, because most people kind of have an understanding of the automotive industry. But if all you needed was a car, then the Yugo would still be in business, and the Buick that I drive would never be offered because nobody would pay what I paid for my Buick. I have a Buick because I also want the extra features and the comfort and the things that come along with that particular car. So you either want it or you need it. Okay. So if you own your own business, I know many of you are probably retired at this point, but if you own your own business or you're managing a business, you should be familiar with the marketing funnel. And I would tell you that if you are one of those people, the chances are pretty good that you're not familiar with the marketing funnel. So this is the process that a consumer goes through when they want to make a purchase. And that purchase, I think that's mine. My computer's making a little funny noise on me. I hope I'm okay. We make a purchase based to satisfy a want or a need, but what the process we go through in learning about the product or service that's available and selecting which one we're going to purchase always goes through this funnel. So starts with awareness. So awareness is mass reach. Talk to lots of people to start telling them about who you are, what your product is, what your brand is. And then from that process, you're starting to explain to people why what you have to offer satisfies a want or a need. From there, that consumer goes into the consideration stage. So if in the square dance world, let's say we don't, but let's say we had $50 million to do a 12-month branding campaign all across the United States. I just picked the United States because it's where I live. All across the United States. And we're going to spend $50 million building branding so that we're telling people what it is, why they should participate. And then we're going to get, if we had that kind of budget, we're going to get enough mass media and frequency that we're going to get people to go, okay, a smaller number of them would actually say, I'm interested. So that's when they get into the consideration stage. If you're interested in buying a car, if you're ready to buy a car and you're considering it, what is probably the next thing that you're going to do? You're going to get online and you're going to go research the car. And maybe you're going to go to Google and you're going to look up information about it. You're probably going to go to a car dealer's site. You're going to go to the manufacturer's site. You're going to do all those kinds of things. That's when you're in the consideration stage. The evaluation stage usually means that you're at the point where you're pretty sure that's the car you want, and you're going to go talk to somebody about it, and you take a test drive, do those kinds of things. Then the purchase happens. And if it delivers what you want, you become a loyal customer of that. And if you really are loyal at it, you become an advocate for that particular product. So in the square dance, it doesn't matter whether it's square dancing or anything else. You got to take a consumer through this process. So over the years, folks who don't know marketing, including me until, well, I would say the last 15 to 20 years is where I've really advanced into a much deeper knowledge about marketing and how it works. We've ran ads in newspapers. We put flyers out about lessons. We used to hang the flyer at the grocery store with a little tear off number. We'd email a friend. We tell people that, hey, we have square dance classes that are starting next Thursday. You're all invited. And that is a tactic that's designed to ask someone to make a purchase. What we didn't do is we didn't talk about the awareness part at the start. So if I asked you to buy a product that you've either never heard of, didn't know it existed, or knew that it existed at one time, thought it didn't exist anymore, and really didn't understand, which is a fairly good description of what people that don't square dance, what their opinion of square dancing is. They knew square dancing existed because their grandma did. They have an opinion of what it is because they were impacted by that opinion, either on what they did in grade school or middle school or high school or something to that effect. They didn't know that square dancing still existed, or at least not in their communities. So when you put a flyer out that you're going to have square dance lessons, that person, the percentage or the chance, the likelihood that that person from that invite is going to show up and take class, it's not going to happen. It just doesn't. There's one-offs, but generally speaking, it does not happen. So when we promote, that's when we're promoting is, it's really telling people our story. So we're educating them about what it is and where it is and why they should participate. And then you ask them to participate. So it should look like this. Does that make sense? I hope so. What I find is that dance clubs, dancers, folks who don't know this marketing funnel, don't know the process, will do things. And I use the example of a parade in a float, or a float in a parade. Sorry. The idea of a float in a parade takes a lot of work. You got to get a truck, you got to get a float, you got to get a flatbed, you got to get power for it, you got to get dancers, you got to put flyers, you got to put a banner on the side. There's a lot of time and effort into putting a float in a parade. And so folks who don't understand the marketing funnel think that they're going to put a float in the parade with a big sign about their lessons. And then 2 weeks later, when they open their doors, their hall is going to be full from the people that saw that float. Which, when I say it like that, sitting here, we all go, well, that's silly. That's not work. Of course it's not. Because what we're doing when we put a float in a parade is we're impacting awareness. We're impacting the top Up here, we're impacting the top of this funnel. And we're really only making one, hopefully good impression on a bunch of people. It takes many impressions. So it's unrealistic, but our dancers think that it's going to fill their floor. And so because it didn't, they've now decided that putting floats in parades doesn't work, and they're not going to do it anymore. It's marketing takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. It takes consistent work to build brand. All right. So I think we'd all agree that pre-COVID times, when we offered square dance lessons, why didn't dancers flock into our lessons when they were offered? So we've talked about a lack of awareness. We've talked about potentially a poor image. There's also a lack of fit problem that we have today. And if you want people to participate in an activity, specifically a social activity, they kind of have an age range that's a comfort zone for people. Now, there's always one-offs. You can have the square dance club that 98% of the membership is 75, and there's a teenage girl that's in their club. So you get some one-offs. But generally speaking, folks have about a 10 to 15 year window of age difference between who they would be willing to regularly spend their social time with. So if your club average age is 75, it's going to be really tough to get a 55-year-old to join the club and be actively engaged. Now, the more dancers closer to their age you can get helps. But the fact is, it's a fit problem. I had a lady that's a salesperson in media, came to a beginner night that I put on, had a blast. We had 7 or 8 squares, and she taught tap, jazz, and ballet, so she gets dance. She didn't come back and take class, and I asked her about it, and her name's Robin, and Robin said to me, I loved it. It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. It was really cool. And she said, and I tried to get my husband and 2 or 3 couples that are friends of ours to come with us, and none of them would do it. And I said, well, you could still have come. She goes, I wouldn't have, because, and I asked her why, and she said, because they're too old. She literally said to me, to my face, they're too old. And Robin at the time was 58. So there's an age problem, a lack of fit problem. But most importantly, when we're doing our marketing, we haven't done enough to get these folks that don't dance to associate square dancing as a product that satisfies a need or a want. And so the solution is promote now, recruit later. You have to recruit, you have to promote first. You have to drive awareness, tell your story. It takes time for them to then start coming. So if they understand the product or service, now you guys know what a circus is. I mean, a Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, a circus, right? I don't have to explain what a circus is. I just need to tell you when the circus is and where it is, and maybe suggest you how to take your grandkids. The awareness part of what it is there. But we don't have that with square dancing, or if we have it in our consumer's mind, it's not exactly right on where we want it to be for us to be successful. Okay, I'm going to go real fast through health and business space because you'll get it. Okay, most businesses have a business space that looks something like this: a large base of infrequent customers. A middle group, the sweet spot, people that are pretty frequent. There's enough of them. That's where they get a lot of business from. And then what we'd call super users, people that are dedicated there all the time. So I use Olive Garden as the example. I assume you have Olive Gardens in Australia. I don't frankly know, but Olive Garden is a big national chain restaurant. It's a mid-level sit down dining restaurant. I am a large base customer of Olive Garden. I probably go a couple times a year. My daughter and son-in-law love Olive Garden. They're in this frequent customer once a month. And there are literally people that would go to a restaurant once a week, every week to eat. And that's what that business model looks like. If you switch it over to activities that are participation activities, I'll use the example of soccer. In soccer, the large base comes from recreational soccer leagues, high school, kids, sports, all of that. The more frequent users end up being competitive soccer leagues, players that are, again, high school, select teams, those kinds of things that are playing 2 or 3 times a week. And eventually you have professionals. So here's what our base looks like. Whoops, there we go. Infrequent customers, very few of them. They might be community dance, beginner events, some basic mainstream dancers. You might have a member of I have a member of my mainstream club here in Omaha that we see him about 3 times a year at one of our dances. They don't go dance anywhere else. They only come to about 3 dances a year. They still pay the full year's worth of dues. They're in that group. If we had 800 of those people, that'd be okay if only 10% of them came to every dance. Then you have fairly frequent dancers, most mainstream, a few plus dancers. These are people that probably come pretty regularly to their home club. Maybe they dance once a month. That's about maybe twice a month. Then you fall into this frequent one. This is where most of the dancers that we're used to seeing at every dance, they fall into this. They're frequent dancers. They go all the time. Some of them are mainstream, some are plus, some are advanced and challenge dancers. That's what our business model looks like. We're really shy on the lower end of that. So in pre-COVID times, we held lessons, and typically about half of the people that took lessons didn't finish class. And then once we graduated, about half of them didn't stay for very long. I've actually seen, my experience has been, at least recently, that number has been even less than half. So why? And the answer is we have a product problem. And I know that I'm not here to talk to you about TikTok and how to use it, if that's what you wanted. But I do want to talk to you about the first P of the full marketing plan, which is the product that you sell. So these new people that we bring into our classes, we got to figure out what it is that they came for. Because what these beginners came for, the reason that they're falling out, they're not staying, is they're not staying because they're not getting what, either the product isn't satisfying a want or a need that they have, or it's not what they thought it was, which doesn't make it bad, but it's not what they came for. Understand that you got people that sample everything. So I learned how to play backgammon once. I don't remember how to play backgammon. There are people that are going to come take square dance lessons, participate for a few years, and then move on, even though they enjoyed it. But the better that we can align what they want in our product with what they're getting, say if I say that the right way, the better our product delivers what they want and what they expect, the more likely we're going to keep them, or at least keep them for a longer period of time. So my thinking on this, and I've been doing a lot of asking of folks who know me that don't square dance, a couple of simple questions. And one of them is relative to what is it that they want if they took lessons. And this is pretty much straight on. They want to take a few lessons and then be able to dance. They want to be entertained, They want to have fun. They want to feel well. It just, every time I've asked non-dancers down this line of questioning, this is exactly what they're looking for. So I want to correlate this to playing, learning how to play baseball as an example. If your 8-year-old learns how to play baseball, he's got to take lessons. We call it practice, but it's lessons, right? They go to practice. But after about 2 practices, what does that 8-year-old get to do every single week? He or she gets to play a game of baseball, right? And of course, as they're at the longer they participate and as they get older, their skills get better. They learn new things. They get better. They get better training. They play more. But the biggest point that I'm making here is that we're taking our dancers and bringing them into class. They want to take a few classes. They want to start dancing. And we're keeping them in a class environment for way too long before they ever get the opportunity to just dance. All right, so here's my scenario, and I won't go through the plus one, but here's the scenario. This is the way we were doing it in Omaha for a long time. We were asking beginners to sign up for 20 weeks of lessons that were offered only once a year on Thursday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. They had to sign up front and they had to pay up front and then successfully complete those lessons, learning 67 calls from a multitude of positions and applications before they were allowed to attend a local club dance. And they were usually encouraged to take the next set of lessons before they finished the first. And then once the lessons were completed, then we asked them to go to a dance at an unfamiliar location to a different caller who calls faster than they are used to, using more complicated choreography than they are used to, and with mostly strangers who at the time were not terribly tolerant of their slowness or lack of efficiency at executing the calls, where they then could only dance to 10 of the 26 pieces of music that were played that evening. But we did ask them to pay the same price as everybody else. So you think about it, they wanted to take a few classes and start dancing and have fun. Social's a big piece of it, whether they knew it or not. That whole interaction stuff is there. Instead, we were putting them in 20 weeks of intensive training and not letting them go dance anywhere and just let their hair down and relax and enjoy themselves. And then once we got through 20 weeks of intensive training, then we said, okay, now you're going to go to a dance. But let me warn you, it's going to be much faster and much harder and much more complicated, even though we had you in intensive training for 20 weeks. Now, let's put all of that in reality on some kind of a flyer or a message, a recorded video, an audio record. And let's say that, and then see how many people actually show up to take the class. And then for areas on the coastlines here in the United States that the entry level is plus, they make them stay in class for a full year before they get the opportunity to just go and dance and enjoy themselves. This is a recreational activity, a social activity, and we've made it difficult college level material. So we might as well charge college tuition for it. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't see everything I wrote because I have it in the full screen mode, but promote. Oh, so here's the progress. So in the 60s and 70s, I know, Daryl, you've called longer than I have. I don't know everybody's background, but some of you guys are going to remember. If you can think back to the 60s and maybe the early 70s and what square dancing was like back then, we had dramatically bigger crowds than we have today. Now, I get that we also didn't have the internet, and there's a lot of other things, besides what I'm not talking about on the screen that has an impact. But back then, in the Omaha area, in 1970, in the Omaha area, over half of the clubs danced the 50 basics. So we were teaching beginners 50 calls in 12 nights. And the reason we did that is it fit perfectly between harvest and planting season, or planting and harvest season. That 12-week window was perfect in rural communities, and the length of time was perfect. And we had huge crowds. There's a reason I put the 4.16 calls per night, and I'll come back to it. So now we have small crowds. We're teaching either 67 or 95 calls in some format between 20 and 50 weeks of class. And we have small crowds. And the reason that I point this out, it would seem like 3.3 or 1.9 calls a night that I have to learn would be a lot easier than 4.16. The reason I do the math is, one, I'm a math freak, but I can't spell my name, but I'm a math freak. But two, the reason that we're only getting through that many calls is because we've increased the complexity of the calls, the increased in it says, oh, the increase in complicated choreography requires longer teach time. Longer teach time means longer time before the dancers get to do what they came to do, which is to dance, right? So it's an exaggeration, but if we want our dancers, when they graduate from mainstream, to understand how to do a left-handed swing through from a right-handed tidal wave, and that there's a break between the two ocean waves of 4 when they graduate from lessons, is crazy. It's ridiculous. That's a horrible expectation. And I'm telling you, there are dancers out there who know how to do that, so they expect the beginner to know how to do it. And there are callers out there who expect their beginners to be able to do that when they graduate from class. And it's ridiculous. That's not what they came for. They came to learn how to dance a few calls, get their partner in their arm, get out on the floor, enjoy the music, enjoy the social aspect. So, sorry, I occasionally wear my passion on my sleeve. So my point here is, the product is not it is not built. What we've turned it into over time, we have not built it to be the kind of product that's going to retain a customer, because they didn't get what they came for. So you get high dropout rate, and low retention rate. And so, Mrs. President, your new customer came, tried it, and left. And now you got to find new customers who will come, try it, and will leave. And that's because the product needs to be tweaked so that the consumer gets what they wanted when they bought the product. Okay, it happened over a long time. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I will tell you essentially here's the short story of how this happened over time. It's my fault. It's your fault. It's dance leaders' fault. And in the middle of all that, it's also the fault of our leadership structure. We don't have essentially a leadership structure in our activity that can sit back as executives and look at what's happening and make changes. It's the fault of selfishness. And what's interesting is that got some people's attention. It's selfishness. But the thing is, thank you, Mel, it was unintended selfishness. It wasn't malice. It was just, I want what I want. And I understand that, because I want what I want. We all do that. Some of the things that I want as a dancer, I personally love complicated choreography. duh, I'm a caller, right? That's how my brain works. But, and I'm not saying there's not a place for that. There is a place for that. If you want a DVD plus club, have a DVD plus club. Fine. If you want to dance C3.5, go dance C3.5. There is nothing wrong with all of those formats. What's wrong is the expectation that I like this particular kind of dance and I get to make the decisions. And therefore, I've decided that if you want to join the square dance activity, you have to dance what I like to dance, the way that I like to dance it. So through time, especially as back in the 60s, there were a lot more caller run clubs and not as many club run clubs. But over time, there's been the growth in the amount of clubs that are run by the membership has grown. It is human nature to learn how to play baseball and not want to play pee-wee baseball all your life. It's human nature, if you're going to learn how to play chess, that you don't want to play the third grade chess team all the time. You're going to want to get better. So the progression from zero through basic to mainstream to plus, and in some people's cases into the advanced and challenge world, there's a lot of people that think that's a real problem. It's not a problem. It's human nature that we're going to want to learn more if we're going to become advocates or enthusiasts of that particular product. The problem happens when we're pushing them to naturally move up the ladder instead of them moving on their own pace. So here's what happened over time. We started out with short lessons. We had big numbers. But then as dancers who are in charge, usually the dancers in charge for a longer period of time that have been dancing longer, end up being the president. And they liked more. And so we gave them more because we wanted to get booked. And the whole process over time moved to the point where now we have folks who, at least in the coastlines, they wanted enough material and they've been dancing long enough that they abandoned easy entry programs because they wanted to dance plus. That's what they wanted to dance. But they gave up on trying to have easier stuff. It's almost easier if I follow through. Have any of you been reading this while I've been talking by chance?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because essentially, over time, we've added more calls, and then we've added more complexity. We've done it because dancers that have been long-term dancers like that stuff, and they're the ones that book us. And in some cases, we've done it because we're callers who see the expansion of the Plus program as an opportunity to call more. And all of these things, which all make sense, and all of them are fine as long as we never lose track of our base of our customers, of our funnel to get customers into the activity. So we changed the product over time now to where instead of 12 weeks and pretty routine, I mean, singing calls were the same, but the figure was the same. So now it's very complicated. I love complicated, love it. Now we're at a point where beginners are finding it harder and harder. And we're at a point now where most of our customer base is old. Oh, and in the process, as they got older and as they became longer tenured dancers, they no longer cared so much about where we dance. They just wanted to dance. So they'll dance in a garage, they'll dance in the church basement, they'll dance wherever. They really don't care so much about the ballroom setting and the feel, the atmosphere of the venue. I'm telling you, the folks who don't square dance that we want to recruit into square dancing, they do care. They have an expectation. and we're not meeting that expectation. So most of our customer base is now older. They're longtime dancers who dance plus or more, who are still making the decisions about running the club. And they're based on, even though it's selfish, it's not malice, it's human nature. They're making the decisions based on what they want to do and with no regard to what's good for the business. Okay. And that's including running our clubs, hiring our callers, who better call what they want or you don't get hired. So what we've done is we've let our high frequency customers make the decisions about running our club based solely on what they want instead of what's good for business. And your customer base eroded because of it. Okay. By the way, if you're following my articles in American Square Dance Magazine, I am right down this line. Okay. High frequency customers. I'm going to talk money just real quick. High frequency customers making all the decisions about running our clubs based solely on what they want instead of what's good for business. So human nature is to pay less. I already told you about my view. Why don't we have marketing funds? We don't, because the people making the decisions didn't plan for one. We also don't because the people running our business, callers and queuers, we don't want to pay for one. We're cheap. If you weren't sure about this, square dancers have been trained from the beginning to be cheap. I had a club meeting last night, 2 nights ago. We have quite a bit of money in our treasury, but because the crowds aren't what they used to be pre-COVID, we're starting to lose money on dances. And even though we have a lot of money in our treasury, relatively speaking, they're already fretting over the idea that at someday we're either going to have to fold because we don't have enough money. They're going to have to pay a couple dollars more to get into the dance. Ugh. And it's everywhere. So our customers who run the business, because they're long-term dancers, they no longer care where we dance and would prefer to dance in a church basement versus a more attractive venue, which is what the more attractive venue is what our non-dancer friends are expecting. Our customers are older, and since they'd rather pay less, they take advantage of the fact that they're seniors and they dance at the senior center. Now, why do they dance at the senior center? Because you either get it for no charge or super low charge because you're old. Okay. Now, when I say I'm not calling any of you old. It's a figurative thing. Sorry, Don. Okay, Don, officially, you're not young. Let's go with that. But I get it. I don't want to pay anymore. Why would I? Senior center's free. Let's dance there. I have a story that I share often. One of the cities that I manage in my real business is Sioux City, Iowa. It's about 120,000 people in the DMA. Sioux City had 7 or 8 square dance clubs, a few round dance clubs. And as they got into this, we don't want to pay anymore. One of the dancers worked at a local business, and that local business's office building had the basement was unused. So he made the arrangement that with the owners that dancers, as long as the square dancers kept it clean, they could decorate, they could do whatever they want to, they could use the basement of their office building for free, no charge. So they rearranged their dance nights so just about everybody could use that office. And it was a cement floor. It was a hung ceiling. So it was a basement, but they did it wasn't musty smelling. They did a nice job of cleaning it up and decorating, and it really wasn't it wasn't like visually an awesome venue to dance in, but it was free. And that location, now the rest of the story is, that was the basement
of the waste management building. So if you know nothing about marketing and you know nothing about brand and image and what you need to look like to attract new customers, and you think nothing about it, then you don't care that you danced in the basement of the waste management building. It's an office building. It's not the dump. But from a brand standpoint, to say to somebody that doesn't square dance, we want you, who doesn't know square dancing, here's a flyer, come take lessons. Not only do you not know what it's about, but we're also dancing at the garbage company. There are no square dance clubs in Sioux City, Iowa today. So dancers who are penny pinchers don't want to pay for a venue, so they'll dance at a senior center. Callers are expensive. We're expensive. You know that, right? We're really expensive. In 2019, I called 100 events ish. I lost 2,500. My net taxable income from calling was minus $2,500. So every time that a dancer paid $6 to pay to dance to me, I paid $25 to call for them. So there's a money problem with that as well. So if we want to attract and retain younger dancers, even if younger means 55 instead of 65, you can't dance at a senior center. It goes back to that fit thing. If they feel like they don't fit with our dance club right now because most of our dancers are 70 years old, let's just accentuate the negative by also dancing at the senior center and just put an exclamation on the point that we're old. And if you're not old like us, you shouldn't participate with us. That's what we're saying. So you can't, if you want to, if you can dance at a senior center, just understand that you're generally only going to get seniors to dance on. And that's okay if that's what you want. These same dancers, these same new people, they think nothing of paying $10 to $20 a night per person for lessons. In this research that I've been doing, it's unsophisticated. I asked two basic questions. Those two, and I would encourage you guys, I'll probably put in my next article, to start asking these very same questions. There's two questions that I asked these people. The first one is, if you and your partner decided that you were gonna take square dance lessons, how many lessons do you think you'd need to take before you could go to a square dance? And you say it exactly like that, because that doesn't define anything for them. It's if you took a lesson, square dance lessons, how many lessons do you think you'd need before you could actually go to a square dance and just dance? And I've got 28, 29. I haven't done the average exactly, but the answer that I'm getting is between 4 and 10. The biggest number I'm getting is 10. The lowest number I've got is 4. So I'm telling you, I have asked 30 people who know enough about square dancing just because they know me, but other than that, know nothing about it. And that group of people have told me somewhere between 4 and 10 classes is the right number of classes before they can start going square dancing. Not 20, not 50. Okay. The second question that I asked them is, okay, so for these same classes that you and your partner have decided that you're going to take, in your mind, what do you expect the cost to be per class? Which is kind of like saying, you know, I know you don't really know much about it, but what do you think a lesson like that would be worth? The low end I'm getting is $10 per person per night. And the high end I'm getting is about 30. The highest I've gotten is $60 a couple. So I've got anywhere from $20 a couple per night to $60 a couple per night for taking those lessons. They'll pay 10 to 20 bucks a night for lessons. You know why we don't charge it? 2 reasons. We didn't think we could. And the people who are running our clubs would be scared to death that if we start charging 20 bucks a head for lessons, that we're going to start charging 20 bucks a head for dances. And they don't want to pay it because they're used to paying 5. So anyway, soapbox. I'm by the way, Larry Marquise, I know you've been reading my articles because, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, but I'm trying to, I tell people what I see, what my experience in my real job shows me about our square dance activity. And I swear somebody's going to show up and tar and feather me someday because I know I'm going to make somebody really mad. But about 90% of what I present is, 80% of what I present is just factual stuff. There's a 10 to 20% that is my educated experience that I'm sharing with you. But I have 47 years as a square dance caller, and I have 32 years in the marketing industry working with businesses large and small on how to grow their business. So I'm not trying to be mean bad guy. I'm just trying to just show you what it looks like. So what do we need to change? So here's some things that I believe. I think lessons should take no more than 10 weeks. I think beginner classes should be offered multiple times a year. I think at 5 weeks, there should be dances offered and available regularly for the folks to participate in. Not class, dance. You've taken 5 classes from me. We're now going to start holding dances at the program that you know how to dance so that you can come out with your partner and your friends and socialize and have fun and be entertained and feel welcome. I think that we should be doing that at 5 weeks into class. And I think it's more than the old model of doing a beginner's hoedown or a halfway hoedown. It's more than, well, you're 10 weeks through a 20-week class, so we're going to stop down and have a dance. I think it has to be more often than that. It's like the t-ball player going to practice for 20 weeks in a row and never getting to play a game of baseball. We've got to increase that frequency. I think there should be clubs that are dancing regularly at this 10-week program. I think we should offer other easy to learn forms of dance like lines or mixers, not 20 weeks of round dance lessons. Other just entertainment pieces as part of our overall dance evening. Okay. I think we should decorate for every dance. You don't have to have a theme, but I don't think we should be dancing in the church basement. That's really the storage room, and we've pushed everything aside. I think the venue should be a party, and it should look like that because that's what our customers are expecting. So I think we should decorate for every dance. I believe in a stage and in showmanship. I believe in a stage because I'm 5'6" on a tall day. And if you get more than about 5 squares, I'm toast. I can't see people. And you know, I'm not sure about, I'm glad you're finding it funny because it is. So Daryl Clendenin may know of this of me, but when I started calling at 13 years old, I was substantially shorter than I am now. And so for the first 3 or 4 years, I stood on a chair and called because I couldn't see anybody. And of course, sight calling was the big thing. And I did a lot of sight. And but I believe in a stage for 2 reasons. I believe in a stage because I think it is much better for a caller to be able to have command of the floor, meaning being able to, well, you guys know what that is. But also, I believe in showmanship. So showmanship is a lot more than I'm just singing. It's what you look like when you're on stage. It's eye contact. It is helping words. It's all of those things. And I just don't know how you eliminate the showmanship part of entertaining our dancers. If, you know, I don't know how you eliminate that, except for one way. The one way you eliminate that is you get a big crowd and then you leave the caller on the floor so they can't see it. and he can't see them. So I believe in a stage. And then I believe folks would rather dance in a ballroom than in a basement. Here's things.
Mike, we've hit the hour.
We've hit it.
It's a couple minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm very close. I'm very close.
Okay.
So
Let
I'm
me,
like
let me
3
do-
slides.
Okay, go for it. I was going to
Okay.
do the usual on the air, on
Okay.
the hour finish, and then we will continue.
Okay. We should charge more. I don't care about the dress code so much. I don't care. I think we should have a variety of music. That's essentially what this thing says. Okay. Here's things I don't believe. I don't believe we should encourage dancers to move on to the next program. They will do it naturally. I don't believe that we should ask new dancers to be officers. They want to enjoy the activity before they're leaders. And I don't believe we should be dancing in senior centers. SSD, this is not intended to be a ringing endorsement for the SSD program. Never was. All of those things that I believe I wrote in a speech that I gave in 2008. It just so happens that a lot of the things about SSD fit the mold, at least right now, fit the mold as close as I can find. It's 12 lessons. I wish it was 10. I wish it was 8. But it's the closest thing that we have. So it's built to get dancers dancing quickly, be entertained, be welcomed, and have fun. Oh, I lied. I'm sorry. This is much more than I was expecting. The rest of this slide, and Don, I'm going to send this to you. I know you're recording, but I'm going to send it to you. So if anybody wants it, they can have it.
I will attach it to the
Okay.
online to the comments
Okay,
on the
Dan.
post.
Thank you. What it does is it talks about, okay, now let's get into tactics. It talks about the marketing manual that I wrote with a few other co-writers, but I basically wrote about 90%. It talks about, that's my hour. It talks about what's in the manual, how to use it, what pages information is on. So if you want to talk about TikTok, it's in there. And then it goes through what things you can do that are low cost or no cost to address awareness, consideration, evaluation, purchase intent, and so forth. So this is the manual and what it does. Education material, research material, define marketing strategies, brand management strategies, huge list of marketing tactics, recommendations, fundraising, and case studies. Another whole group of resources that you'll have available here, including me. In case you don't know, I love this square dance activity. I am so happy that my parents made me square dance when I was 13. So really, embrace change, modify the product so beginners stay, develop a plan to market the square dancing to the public where you live, raise funds, pursue opportunities to dance in public, create opportunities for non-dancers to sample the product through beginner parties, make learning and dancing as easy and readily available as possible. And if you do all of that, meaning don't be selfish and do plus from every position and expect our beginners to be able to do that. If you do all that, I think we have a real good chance at retaining and potentially even growing our activity. But you have to have the vision, and vision, thanks to Albert Einstein, vision without action is hallucination. And that's my hour and 3 minutes.
Wild applause.
Let me make it official. Again, I'd like to thank Dan for doing the mechanical or electronic hosting, and we'll eventually be posting this up. I'd like to thank you guys for coming. I see some faces that haven't joined us regularly, and I'd love to have you back regularly. I really want to thank Mike for being willing to do it and for a great presentation. I heard you speak, Mike, at was at one of the keynotes at Color Lab, and it just was impressed how you were able to put it all together, combining your marketing and your calling experience. And you showed a bunch of that here, which is great.
Thank you.
Let's make it official now. And thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Again, if anybody only designated an hour, put an hour aside for this, don't feel embarrassed to go. A few people had to leave already.
Absolutely.
But if you want to hang around for more conversation, discussion, I have come up with a whole list of questions I have. But
All right. Well, Don, I want to thank you, but I actually have to go mow the lawn now. So. Yes, I'm kidding. Actually, I do have to go mow the lawn, but I got plenty of time to stay and answer questions and chit chat. So.
Yeah, the lawn's
before everyone else goes away, I'd just like to say, I hope to see you, all of you, at the Evansville National Convention, June 22nd through 25th. Come by, say hi, and we'll have a great time down there. Great presentation, Mike.
Thank you.
I was out on the boat with you in Minnesota last year.
Yeah.
Boat was rocking, so you all know what he did.
Oh, you're gonna tell him?
You're rocking in Roselee's boat. What else?
of course.
Well, you missed one. So it was the kickoff to the Minnesota State Convention, and it was at a big lake. Makes sense. So Friday afternoon, everybody got on one of the boats, one of these big, flat party boats, and we went out on the lake, and our first square dance was on the lake. So the first patter record that I used, I opened the whole thing with the theme song from the movie Titanic. And I didn't even realize that that's what I had done. I just picked that song.
Speaking of setting the mood, yeah.
It's setting the mood. Yeah, but it was fun. Yeah, we did Rock and Rosalie's boat, a bunch of other stuff. So,
Bill, we've been having over 80 of these things in the last 2 years, and it's generally been for callers, and I decided that this would be something great for dancers also. I really appreciate your coming, and hopefully you will spread the word that the video is online if others want to watch. I don't know you personally, Bill, but I'm assuming that you're a dancer at the top of the pyramid, not necessarily levels, but excitement and trying to remember your quoting what you said, wearing your enthusiasm on your sleeve, Mike. That was, I know the feeling, and as do most of us here. Anyway, without any further ado, other comments, questions? Telling Mike.
I didn't see the chat, so go ahead and ask, but I'm reading what was posted in the chat while I was talking.
I thought maybe you'd like to see my graduating class from about 1970. Okay, that'll give you an idea. Now that was an extremely large class even back then.
Right.
It was just a world of different back in those days than it is these days.
Yeah, and if you look at the faces in that crowd, it's definitely diverse in terms of age, but the average is dramatically lower than it is now that we're having in our classes.
Yeah,
right.
I'll tell you what, Mike, absolutely fantastic presentation. You hit on things that have been said over and over and over again through the past couple of decades. Just hopefully people will start to listen. If we don't make some changes, it's not going to change. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
It's like I said, I'm just trying. I've got a lot of years in both industries, and I am not innocent either of making poor decisions in terms of how our activity is ran. I'm the guy that in my early 20s, you know how smart we are when we're 21, right? Thought it would be a good idea to start a plus club in Omaha on Friday nights against 7 other mainstream clubs. And I selfishly lined my pockets because I had 18 squares every night at my plus bands. And I'm not saying that though that most of those mainstream clubs that I went up against wouldn't be gone today, but I had no idea that what I was doing was killing their programs, because those clubs went from 15, 12, 8 squares every night at their club dances to 6 to 4 to 2 to the clubs closed. Now, I'm not going to tell you that my having that plus club on a Friday night against those mainstream dances, I'm not going to tell you that those clubs wouldn't be gone today had I not done that. I still think they would still be gone. But I'm guilty as anybody of making bad decisions about how to run our business.
Mhm.
And it's, at the time, I was 21. I guess it's why God forgives us of our sins. We don't know what we do. I didn't know what I was doing. And I guarantee you at 21, if you'd tried to tell me, I wasn't going to hear it, because I was 21. We've all been there. So it takes time, unfortunately, to learn all these things. And in our square dance activity, I said earlier in the presentation that it's probably been the last 15 years of 47 years of calling, that the reality of what we have inadvertently done to our activity has hit me. I've heard bits and pieces. I've had this parallel about meeting and talking with so many business owners about how their business works and what they do to drive new customers and the kinds of changes that they have to do to drive new customers. And at some point, probably 10 years, 15 years into really doing marketing, I went through the transition of selling radio to being a marketing consultant, because I finally got to where I could put it all together. And that's kind of where I got to with square dance. So I'm sorry that I started a plus club on a Friday night when I was 21 years old, and it probably hurt the clubs that were in the area. It's good for me. It was bad for them. And if I could have taken the 30,000 foot level viewpoint of it, had some maturity, I would have recognized the mistake that I was making and made a change. Most of the things that we're doing now, like I said, there was no malice, there was no intent. Dancers and callers, we just did what we wanted to do without being able to take the 30,000 foot view of our business and what we have to do to have a successful business. If you don't have new customers in the door, I tell my clients this all the time. I don't care how good you are going to have attrition. You are going to have customers leave you. No matter how good you are going to have attrition, and you better have a plan to replace that attrition with new customers. You got to have that plan. So that's why I do these things.
Larry's got a question. Go for it.
Larry.
Sure. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Larry.
Yeah. So, I'm talking specifically about clubs in Denver. So this may not be the case in other places,
Okay.
but there's one club that's really curious to me. It's one of the bigger clubs in the area, and they're exceptionally good at recruiting dancers for their class.
Okay.
And and by that I mean they get more than a square of class. Maybe
it's all relative. Yeah.
Compared to the 70s, maybe that's not so great, but today I think that's good. Yeah. Like right now they have 17 students. And, they're really good about that. And they love to tell everybody, hey, we have 17 people in our class. And they feel like they've done their job. But what I've noticed I've only been in the area for the last 6 years. So I've noticed in the last 6 years, they basically lose every class member they have. Some graduate and never come to a dance. Some graduate and dance for a year and then drop out. There's all kinds of stories, but it doesn't matter. They're good at recruiting, good at teaching them, but after that, they're terrible at retaining. So they're they do some things well, but other things are really bad. But the curious thing is that only a couple of people in the club see it as a problem. So like many members think, well, my job is to recruit people to the class. My job's not to keep them in the activity, but the activity is not receptive to them, especially in the example you gave, if right out of class, they go to a dance, and they basically get creamed, and, but anyway, that was what I wanted to just mention and wonder if there's other clubs that are good at some part of this, but not so good at the other part. And then do clubs recognize, whether they need to do anything different?
So, oh, wow. Okay. So I look at recruiting as having multiple pain points, multiple focuses. So recruiting, a lot of people take recruiting and retention and they put them in different categories. Okay. I understand that there are some differences to them. We can have the most perfect product that if we get somebody to try it, they're here for the rest of their lives. And we just know so many of them are here for the rest of our lives. We still have to recruit, right? But I see recruiting and retention as connected. If you think your job is to recruit, get people to come to class, and then it's not up to you whether they stay or not, I think you're wrong. I don't think you're doing your full part. Now, understand this 30,000-foot view of things. If you think about the idea of that all these people that we're having recruit for us, they're not business owners. They are by human nature selfish. They're not bad people. They just make decisions based on what they want without much thought to it. So, and for the most part, they don't want to run the business. They don't want to hold office, and they don't want to have responsibilities. So to say it's your job to go out and find new dancers, beginners, and get them into our class, and then it's your job to make sure that we retain those people, right? That's a lot to ask of a volunteer who doesn't want to hold an office. And then I don't know, and I don't want you to tell me what the club is. I do call a lot in Denver, so I have some ideas. But what it sounds to me like is the club has something more than just this fleeting thought that they ought to recruit people for class. They have something, some leadership, some system. They're doing something from the leaders of their club down that is causing their club members to feel some responsibility to get people into class. And they're having success with that. But if all you did is you got somebody to come to class and you don't know them and you don't really, it's a check the box situation where it's like if I tell salespeople that work for me that they need to make 20 cold calls a day, they can pick up the phone and make 20 cold calls Hi, it's Mike with iHeartMedia. Want to advertise on the radio? Oh, okay, thanks. Check, right? It really has a lot to do with how do you handle, how do you maneuver that situation? So if they're checking the box, I got 6 people to come to class, check, done. They're not owning it. They're doing better than a lot of clubs. I have clubs that are, I mean, how many of us said, I've asked everybody I know? Of course you asked everybody you know. You asked everybody you know 15 years ago, and then you quit asking them. But because you did ask them once 15 years ago to consider taking square dance lessons, you've clearly asked everybody that you know. Sorry, getting passionate about this stuff. Right? So they're doing a better job of at least getting their members to find people and get them into class. But then their membership, it sounds to me, is like, okay, they're here. We're good. I'm going to go back to dancing what I want to dance, how I want to dance, as fast as I want to dance, with as much complicated choreography as I want to dance. And good luck with these new people.
They give them a badge.
And so that, I mean, truly, retention is never 100%. We always have attrition, right? People try new products and new services and try them, and then they don't buy them. So the idea, if in my mind, if we get 100 people to take class and we lose 50 of them halfway through the class, and we lose another 30 of the remaining 50 within the first year, we got 20 people left. 20% retention. If we can move that 20% retention to 40% retention, amazing difference it would make in our square dance population. I'm not talking 100% retention. If we can move from 20 to 40, amazing difference. And that retention piece is about what they get. It's a correlation between what they expected when they said they'd take class and what they got. And what they're expecting is to take a short length of classes and then be able to go dance. They didn't sign up for college. They want to be entertained. They want to feel welcome. They don't want somebody going, you don't know how to do spin the top? I'm not going to dance in your square. Right? The world is hard. But so that's the kind of conversations that we have to continue to have with leadership, with our clubs. Great. Thank you so much for finding some people to come and take class. If you want these people to stay in our club so that our club is healthy, you need to support them through the class program. You need to become their friends. And we need them to be able to enjoy the dance experience faster. Not faster dance, shorter window of time between when they said, yes, I'll take class, to the time that they're actually enjoying the dance experience. And I know some people enjoy class, but we just got to get them there. So I think the club you're talking about is doing a better job than most, but they still got a lot of work to do.
Mike, let me throw in a quick question, then Mel, and then Chris. Chris has his electronic hand up. Mel was waiting.
Nice job, Chris.
Actually, one comment relative to what you guys were just talking about. I used to tell my clubs, it's your job to bring them through the door the first day. It's my job to make them come back the rest of tomorrow, next week, and the week after, and the week after. And what you just taught me about is that it's not only my job, but it's their job also, to make the hall good, to make people welcome, what have you. But I think there's an awful lot we're learning about callers having to not try to teach spin the top from tidal waves the first night. The caller has some control over it. Anyway, the tough question, said things are tough. The tough question I have for you, Mike, is you having all this knowledge that you've shared some of with us. Have you had any success implementing any of this in your area?
No.
Why
No.
not?
Well, I have actually our area has been doing, I wouldn't say no was the correct answer. Let me give you the symptoms that show that. Okay. Des Moines and Omaha are about 2.5 hours apart. They are virtually the same size cities. One is 70 in market size 72, and the other one is market size 74 in the country. So they're almost identical. They're Midwest, right? Omaha has 7 square dance clubs and 2 round dance clubs. Des Moines has no square dance clubs and no round dance clubs. And I've been preaching to the choir here, right? And we dance mainstream. There's A+ club in town, but mainstream's the entry program. We've done multi-cycle, which I hope most of you kind of know what that is. Lanny Weekland and I are the co-callers for our home club. Fortunately for my career, 3.5 years ago, I got promoted to this market president position in Sioux City, which is a hour and 45-minute drive from here. And now I have Ogallala, Nebraska, which is 5 hours west. So I can't teach right now because I'm in Sioux City or I'm in Ogallala or I'm moving. My schedule is too complicated to commit to the same night a week. But because we've had multi-cycle, because I'm sure the awareness of the clubs around here about believe me, if Lanny or I put somebody new on our dance floor, and I suspect for a second that you as a dancer are giving them the cold shoulder because they can't do spin the top, I'm going to have a conversation with you about that.
Good.
Because honestly, if I see that going on, and my choices are to keep that dancer that was being snotty to the new dancer, or keep the new dancer, I'm gonna keep the new dancer. And of course, Lanny and I have the years of leadership in our market that we've earned the right to have sometimes that tough conversation. And so the overall theory that I talk about is having an impact in this market. We are doing different things. We haven't escaped the potential of extinction. We haven't. Our dancers are older, just like everybody else. But we at least have 7 clubs in the market when other markets our size have none. Sioux City has none. There's a new caller that's trying to start a group in Lincoln. After Lincoln, there's another town called York, which is an hour and 15 minutes west of Omaha. I know, my wife just came to tell me I'm still on. She's like, which I think is her way of saying, first of all, do you know you're way over the time limit? And I'm like, yeah. She doesn't know we just gone into chit chat stage. But from Lincoln, the next area that has square dancing is Denver, Colorado, which is, so it's basically a 6.5 hour void of dancing at 80 miles an hour. So, where we used to have dancing in every tiny little town. So there's a lot going on, but at least in Omaha, we still have a fairly strong dance community. COVID hit it pretty hard, but yeah, I can't say this is the one thing that I think if there were 3 things that I'd say that have helped us. We did multi-cycle, which allowed us not to have big classes, but to regularly have classes. I started an organization called Square Dance Omaha several years ago. that has been doing, it's just volunteers from different clubs to be on that board that has been doing the organization of doing things like dancing at the ballpark, doing parades, doing things to try and help with the overall awareness of the activity. I can't put my finger on, we did this and therefore this happened. I know we're doing these things, and I know we're not as close to extinction as a lot of other places. And that's how marketing works. It really is. You have to be out there consistently in front of people. And you can't necessarily tie exactly what you did to why your results are different from people that aren't marketing. So starting Square Dance Omaha had a piece to do with it. And then because of Square Dance Omaha and my work and leadership, the dancers understand that whole theory about being welcoming, you know, being proud of square dancing when you're out in the public, instead of, I don't want anybody to know that I'm a square dancer, because there's those out there. And all of those things together, I can't put my thumb on exactly which one of them, but we're doing better in Omaha than a lot of markets are. And I think some of that has to do with the kinds of things that I talk about. So hopefully.
For those of you that don't know what multi-cycling is, Mike Seastrom did a great presentation for us a year and a half ago or so. Go back through the archives and watch that. Mel, I think you were next. What did you have to add?
Yeah, fascinating presentation, Mike. Excellent.
Thank you, Mel.
You brought up a couple of things that I brought up. One was or that were applicable to me. Like, I was very blessed when I came back from Germany. I had a whole new aspect of what square dancing was, and was in for a big shock when I got to Canada. I started a number of my clubs, but when I moved to Ottawa, I was very blessed because I had two clubs, one which hired me, and it had basic, mainstream, and plus on 3 nights. A second one that when the caller passed away, I absorbed, and it had basic, mainstream, and plus on separate nights. So I was very lucky, and then I started 3 of my own. So when I had that, it was great. But one of the things that I did when I was hired by one of the clubs, it was one of the biggest clubs in the area, was I asked them, what do you want to achieve? And they said, well, we want to feed our clubs, so that we get a new dancer class in each year, and we get a big mainstream so our plus club can grow. And that was their perception of it. And it was exactly as you were saying, that was the market. They were, well, quite frankly, very selfish for themselves. That said, they were a lot of really great people, and they recruited.
Right.
What I did, they were getting 1 to maybe 1.5 squares of new dancers in, of which, again, there was that 20% retention rate. What I said to them was, okay, I'll tell you what, the cost of dancing 3 nights a week was very, very prohibitive to them. I said right there, you bring in 3 couples and you dance with them for the year of their class, and we were running for a year, their dances. You don't have to pay for the club, basic, mainstream, or plus. You can dance all those nights free. And I got the club to agree to that. We went from 1 to 1.5 squares to 3 squares of recruitment to 4 squares of recruitment. And what was happening was the dancers that were at the mainstream plus were coming to dance more and more with the basic club. It made a much fuller hall. It was that, and that was the cheapness why we were losing, because it is expensive. I was lucky enough to have a demographic to do that, but it really struck home what the emphasis was they would recruit to their friends, but they would dance with their friends for the whole year and then transition with them into the mainstream group. And then that group would recruit to their friends, and they were dancing 2 nights a week. And if ever they brought in 3 couples, they danced free at wherever they wanted to go, including our events. Well, that was pocketbook enforcement. It was really, really good.
Good.
The second thing is, I still believe in having a product. I still believe in the basic program as a program, mainstream as a program. I don't mind doing a full year of basic through mainstream, but I totally agree with you. You have to have a place for them to dance. And one of the biggest things is all this my turf issues that a lot of callers are facing today. If an area can get together and say, right, if we're going to do this, collectively we can create these venues. We can have a 5th Monday or a 5th Saturday and have a dance for everybody in our area, whatever the lowest common denominators, that's the dance level. Give them a place to go. I was absolutely adamant that that would be part of it. And that helped because it was no longer a class, it was a collective community.
Right.
And that grouping kept them together. I'm in an unfortunate situation where I am here in rural Australia. We have, the town I moved from had more clubs and groups and organizations in Canberra, which is the nation's capital, because they focused everything in rural communities. I've just moved. We're moving to a small town. It's got a great demographic. It's got about 2,000 people. And I'm hoping in about 2 years, I can have a success story with starting a group. I'll let you know on that. But one of the advantages is struck home to what you were saying. The nearest club to here is Melbourne, which is 400 kilometers one way. And the other nearest club is Canberra, which is 400 kilometers the other way. Every year, a group, they hold a halfway dance near here because it's halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, but there's no square dance clubs. I'm hoping that the advantage I'll have is there's no square dance clubs. Yeah. There's nothing, there's no precursors, or there's no misperceptions of what the dancers that dance now want. They think what square dancing should be. And, you know, let's show up lampshades and frou-frous and try and sell rather than the enjoyment of the activity. So this is what I'm hoping is going to happen with that. And we can actually build something with the demographic of it's a community activity. It's there for the fun. And that's where the hope. I loved your presentation on the marketing because you hit a lot of those salient points. And the final point I had is even when we do it right, the rest of the square dance community across the world, except for a few places, treats new dancers as dirt, as second-class citizens, or worse, third-class citizens. We go to the national convention and you've got a plus hall with, 800 dancers in it, if we're lucky today. You've got a mainstream hall with 200 to 300, but depending on who's calling, all the plus dancers will come and dance that caller. Then you've got the new dancer hall, which is, oh, well, there's a classroom over there. We'll shove the desks off, open the partition between the door and the basic, and then we're going to put all the brand new callers because they're brand new callers, so they don't know how to call plus and mainstream. We're going to put them and we give them absolute crap as a reward for all their work. And that has been going on for too long. Personally, I think all the new dancer hall, every hall should be one hall and it should be at one activity. That's never going to happen. But the new dancer hall, even if there's only 10 squares in it, if you're lucky, should be the main hall all the time. That's just a personal opinion and a wish, but who knows? Maybe we'll get back there. Those are my comments. I loved your presentation, Mike.
Mel, I've got to throw in an anecdote about we've got to work on not only the callers, but I think the clubs to understand what you were just saying. I was on the phone many years ago with a club that's mostly A1, but they decided they were going to have a class level dance for classes in the area. They were very successful, hired a lot of good callers, but they were talking about available dates and then for me for doing one of their dances, and they said, oh, we got this date, but it's only a class level. You wouldn't want to call that, would you? And I said, there's no reason that the newer dancers shouldn't enjoy a good dance as much as the seasoned dancers. And it was one of the biggest dances, and they hired me, and we had 18 squares. I think one of the biggest dances in the area at the time. We got
absolutely correct, John.
You got to educate the dancers.
We have a dancing community now that says, well, if it's basic or mainstream, it's not a good dance. And they don't realize it. It's not the program. We have a fantastic program. The basic program is a fantastic program. What we don't have is the ability to sell that program. We lost that ability as you say it, and I'm so glad you said it, because we're a bunch of self-centered, selfish bastards. You didn't say it that way, but you may as well have. Yeah. And that's what we've been for the last.
But I didn't exactly say it that way.
No, but the essence of it was there. Filter. And that's what we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years. Yeah. And
Chris,
we call for ourselves and we call for our clubs.
Chris, you had your hand up a long time ago. Did you get tired?
Well, no, I just I already got in the queue, so I figured I'd just wait.
Gotcha.
You've waited. It's your turn.
Besides, it's a virtual hand, so he's doing it. Hi, Chris.
My virtual hand was getting tired.
Most flamingos can't hold their hands up that way.
That's right. So that was a good talk, and sort of a nice introduction to a lot of marketing basics. I had to pop in and out of it because I had some things going on here, but I had a couple of things I wanted to say. You might have already said them when I had to pop away. But one of them has to do with when you're trying to come up with a sort of a marketing analysis and maybe a plan for what to do about advertising or whatever. You start out with a bunch of assumptions about who the potential customers are, and so that's things like demographics, how old they are, and income levels, and where they live, and that kind of thing. And so one of the assumptions that I saw going by there had to do with people knowing what square dance is, and the assumption there is that it's old people, largely, because, for example, the thing about, maybe they remember from when they had it in school. Now, this might really vary regionally around the country, but the places I've lived, if you had any kind of square dancing in school, you're at least in your mid 70s now, and possibly your 80s. And so the aging out, dying off segment of the population, which is of course the thing that we're largely holding on to now, that's definitely a market. That's definitely a demographic that you can go for if you want to do that. But if you want to retain people over time, you probably want people who are going to be alive over time. So, hence, and of course, square dancing used to be a much younger activity. So those kind of assumptions are maybe worth a little bit of review. The people that you're trying to get are not necessarily the people like you, and they're not even necessarily the people who are your dancers now. So that's always something to think about. So a thing that goes along with that is when you're doing a demo or you're inviting people into an existing club or that sort of thing, you're gonna the people that you the people that are going to come over there, they're going to take a look and see what the deal is, and they're going to look and see how people are dressed and how old they are. And so if you're looking for a younger demographic, they want to go out and have a hip time. They don't want to dance with grandma. So I guess what I'm saying there is that you're unlikely to get new people into existing clubs where the clubs are older.
Right. This is the part I was talking about when I talked about we have a problem with fit.
Right. Now a bunch of things that you were talking about really hit home for me, and it's not because I've tried them with square dancing, because I haven't, but they resonate with me from another dance activity that I've taught and been a leader and put on dances and all that for a long time, which is the swing dancing crowd, which is kind of like ballroom dancing, but maybe a little bit more like barroom dancing. And and that's younger people, generally, somewhere their 20s on into maybe 40s, right in the exact sweet spot that every advertiser wants for every product, right? Right in there. And they have a lot of disposable income, and they're kind of moving fast. That seems to me like a really good area to try to go after. Other dance activities have thrived over the last 30-40 years doing that. And like you said, the people are, in terms of what they're willing to pay, in terms of the venue, they're a little less sensitive to that than you might think. A lot of it, the lessons anyway, happen in church halls, not in the basement though. Some churches have a very big, very fancy recreation facility adjacent to the church. So that kind of thing even if they have smaller ones, the crowd of people will go in there and they won't look at it funny. And a lot of it happens in places like VFW halls and those kind of venues that you can rent. If you have a membership in for trying to get those kind of club halls, VFW halls and Elks and Moose and that kind of thing, and Shriners and Masons and things, sometimes they're rec halls. For those kind of things, it's best price-wise if you have somebody who can get you an in. But what the dancers are willing to pay is easily $10 to $12 an hour for lessons at the low end. And like you were saying, for some other, like if you advertise group lessons for a small group where you're going to have, I don't know, maybe 4 couples, but not probably more than that. It's kind of in between private lessons and full-on group lessons. Yeah, they'll pay $20, $40, $60 an hour for that, an hour. And that's how long they think the lesson is going to last, by the way, an hour and a half. You could also do an hour and a half, but everybody thinks the lesson's an hour. And the other thing is they think lessons are in terms of how long are they going to sign up for something. They're going to sign up for something for 6. I believe that 6 weeks is the magic number. 10 is kind of long. Sometimes people will do that, but people have really short attention spans nowadays. And, so what I'm thinking is that we need some kind of a program that doesn't have very much material in it at all. And it runs for about 6 weeks. And you're not going to plan on those people making it every 6 weeks, because they're not. You'll be lucky if they come to 5 of the lessons. They're going to miss some because that's how life works now. Especially for people in that demographic. They have, things happen. So, a very short 4 to 6 week thing. And at the end of that, every month, you got to have a monthly dance for them. A nice dance, where everybody can go, and they're gonna only have to know that level, the 4 to 6 weeks of stuff, and they're not going to be like super jam-packed weeks either. I'm talking really, really basic stuff, far more basic and simplified and less material than SSD. Just to I don't want to say anything negative about SSD, because I think we need to try every possible approach, and that's a new one. It's generated a lot of excitement. Nobody seems to agree on what it is, and people are going to do all kinds of different things with it, and that's fine with me. But I'm talking about something a little bit different. And the key thing, and I think you've mentioned that, and I think Mel's mentioned that, is that you have a regular dance that people can count on. That's widely advertised in the community with neighborhood flyers and whatever, as well as your internet and Facebook and whatever advertising, and of course your word of mouth. But you have that dance every month. They know they can go to it. And here's the thing: it doesn't take much lessons to be able to go there, and it's going to be much easier for people to drag their friends to this. And the other thing is, after you've learned your 4 to 6 weeks of stuff, you haven't learned very much, and you don't have very much to forget. So you can come and do it, and then you can go away, and then you can come back. And if you did forget it, it's only a 4 to 6 week catch up. And if you want to bring your friends, you don't have to tell them, oh, come back in 3 months. It's like, oh yeah, well, there's a good chance you'll be able to say something like, oh, well, they're starting the lessons again over next Tuesday. You want to come? You should come on over. I'll come with you. And sort of building on that whole thing with a regular full-blown first-class dance for these guys, with good collar and a halfway decent place every month, basically. Maybe you can do it every 6 weeks or something, actually, but something like that, very, very regular. That's the thing. There's a lot of people today, by the way, talking about the kind of, this is all, like you said, it's about maximizing the base, and you're going to have a very small number in the pyramid there of people who go on and do this forever. I mean, you know, the theory there is you can tell people to take lessons for the rest of their life. You just can't tell them that up front. You just have to lie and say it's 6 weeks. And at the end of 6 weeks, if they really liked it and they're like, is there more stuff? We've been to those dances. They're really fun and we want more. And then of course, you know, you have more. We have, oh yeah, we have this thing. I don't think you want to call it basic or mainstream, because I think those names suck. But yeah, we have more square dance lessons. And you can come on and, you know, eventually you can dance C3.5 or whatever. But but the key thing is having that dance. And by the way, if you want, I believe, and this is something a lot of people disagree with. I think you disagree with it, or at least sometimes you do.
Me?
You can have, yeah.
Okay.
You can have a multi-level dance. This monthly dance you're doing. If you make it be a big giant production, I think you can get away with having it be a multi-level dance. People are not necessarily so averse to dancing every other one, or especially if it's really just their level the whole time, and then you have a few, you know, essentially star tips thrown in through, you know, once an hour or something like that. That's probably really.
Allow me to state my position on that.
Go for it, Mike.
And honestly, you know, I told you about that I've interviewed 25, 30. I'm shooting for 50 non-dancers, and after the first 2 questions, with a handful of them, I've done some follow-up questioning. And what I found interesting is when we've talked about that there's different programs of the, I think I've talked to 6. Almost every one of those conversations, we talked a little bit about that in the fall conversation. And most of them were like, I don't mind if you have a set during the night that the dance is for me, for folks that can do harder stuff, because I'd be interested in seeing what that is. And I need to take a break once in a while anyway, so I don't really mind doing it. That surprised me. And so my stance on it has been swayed a little bit by that. Part of my conversation about that beginners in any activity naturally want to learn more. So we get all concerned about, no. You can't move from mainstream to plus until you've successfully danced mainstream for 3 years. I don't know who decided it was 3 years. I have no idea. But, you know, those are theories that we don't want them to progress. Well, every single dancer is going to progress at different speeds based on their aptitude about being able to comprehend and their amount of time available. So I'm not nearly as concerned about dancers moving from basic to mainstream, or SSD to mainstream, or mainstream to plus. I'm not nearly as concerned about them moving on. What I'm concerned about them is them moving on before they're ready, which sometimes they need a little coaching. And I think most dancers move on before they're ready because they see all their friends doing something that they can't do. There's no 21-year-old that wants a beer as badly as the 20-year-old who's got 3 weeks to go.
That's right.
It's what you can't have, right?
There's
So,
No, you're in the States and not in Australia.
yes, I'm in the States and not in Australia. Maybe I needed to be in Australia at 18. Brian Clark, when did you jump in?
I've been here for a while.
You just been silent in the background.
Right after he showed up right after the formal presentation.
Exactly.
I got you.
So the thing you're talking about is the problem of, you know, having levels and whatever, and how some people don't think we should have any, or we shouldn't expose beginners to the fact that it's there, or that kind of thing. And I'm right with you there. And so that's I guess the thing I was trying to address was the something that people say sometimes is, We can't have a multi-level dance because somebody came in, they came in, they paid their $10 or however much they paid, and they need to get their full value. Well, the full value is something that you sort of mentally, it's a game, right? It's a matter of setting expectations and then delivering on those expectations.
Right.
And if the expectation is that we're going to have a 2-hour dance, or maybe 3 hours even, and once an hour the show-offs are going to get up and dance for 10 minutes. Like you say, people will be like, oh yeah, that sounds fine. And so it's not, but again, they really have to feel like this dance is their thing, and that it's for them. Another kind of people that we have nowadays are.
Can I make a comment about multi-level dancing?
Oh, please, sure.
One of the things that I experienced and really frustrated me when I was a newer mainstream dancer, and we went to a dance that was multi-level. The people who danced plus would not get up and dance with the mainstream dancers.
Here, here.
Yeah, that's a
because they saved their energy for the plus.
Or
They were
couldn't
only
do
going to
it.
dance every other one anyways, so they saved their energy for the plus and wouldn't get up with the mainstream.
Well, in the scenario I'm talking about, they'd be too bored because they're only going to get up for 10 minutes once an hour. So that might make them not go to the thing at all. But in terms of the relationships that the people have, the experienced dancers and the higher level dancers and whatever with the beginners, that's something that is for the leader to cultivate, the caller, the teacher, whoever's up there in front, and of course the people that are helping, manning the door when you come in, and your entire staff, as it were. They have to, all of these things, but especially the leader sets the tone. That people are really going to look to see, what do you do? How do you act? Are you nice? Those things. That there's the caller has a huge influence on that, and the people that they interact with when they're not interacting with the caller, the people who come in and running the gate at the door, and everybody else that's helping, so this is where your members at large ought to be at-larging those newbies that just walked in the door.
We have a couple other hands, Chris. Let me put
Oh,
her on.
I wanted to throw in
Yeah.
just one last quick point. There's a demographic today that I would call samplers. There's a lot of people today in the way our society moves who want to come and try something. They have no intention to do it more than a little bit. They want to come. They'll come and take a dance lesson, see what it is, and maybe do it a little bit, and then they're done. They're like, okay, we did that. And those people are valuable. You might think they're coming in and then they're just walking out the damn door. What was the point? Well, the point was that you had people flowing through, being ever so briefly part of your base, and they know other people. And they're liable to say, oh yeah, we tried that square dancing thing. It was kind of fun. We did, and now we're off doing something else.
As Mike said, that's good exposure and getting people to know what it's about. Is the first
Right.
Exactly.
So, guys, I actually have to jump here pretty quick. So I'm going to stay another 5 minutes in case anybody's got anything pointed they want to ask me.
Brian's been waiting for a while.
I've got one thing I want to ask you, Mike, and it's off topic. You started to drift off into showmanship a little. Would you like to do even though we've had several versions of showmanship, can we talk you into doing a showmanship session sometime?
Sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. And I did want to throw in while you're talking.
Oh my gosh, somebody asked me to talk about something not called marketing. I'm blown away.
Well, when we talked on the phone, you said you were passionate about a lot of versions, and since you're as successful as a caller, we'd love to hear some of those things too.
Okay.
As far as multi-level dances, I just want to throw in as a caller, maybe it's selfish, but when I program an evening, I'm trying to work the crowd's moods. I hate to have to play all of a sudden drop to a different program and work with a different crowd. I just can't work the whole thing. I see hands up of Mel, then
Brian Clark has been
then
waiting.
Dan.
I've already spoken.
I'm going to sneak
Take
in
your
real
hand
quick,
down there.
Don. Before
Yep.
Mike leaves, Mike, you
Clark.
may want to look at the chat and read through it quickly. It has interesting stuff in it.
Okay, thanks, Clark.
Or save it so you can read it later like I do.
Brian.
Brian.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that I sort of wanted to mention, because you were talking about the sort of multi-level thing, and how it comes to marketing. So here in Vancouver, during the summertime, basically all of our dancing shuts down, and what we do, and we do this mostly for the new dancers. We run mainstream dances all summer long, and every single one of the callers locally hosts one of the nights or one of the afternoons. And so what that does is it gives a chance for all of the dancers, all of the new dancers, to be able to see each and every one of the callers locally, so they can see who they are and what they like to dance to and what have you. Unfortunately, of course, most of the clubs here are plus, so it's kind of a pain because they then have to go into another class to be able to go dance to those callers. But the whole mechanism is designed around giving those people a place to dance all summer so they don't forget things. The problem that I have is that most of the callers who do those dances, midway through the dance, they'll throw in a plus tip because they look at the floor and they see that most of the dancers on the floor are plus dancers, so they say, oh well, we'll just throw a plus tip in there. And my argument with them is that this dance is specifically run for the mainstream dancers to be able to dance and have fun and enjoy dancing with all of the other local dancers. It's not an opportunity for them to advertise the next level that they're expected to go to. It's supposed to give them floor time and give them the place to dance. And so whenever I'm asked to call on this program, the plus dancers all walk up to me and they say, oh, are we going to do a plus tip? And I say, no. I said, this is a mainstream dance. It's meant for the new dancers. It's not meant for the plus dancers. If you want to dance plus somewhere in the summer, organize a plus dance. Everyone who's come in here is paid, their $10 to dance. And if you're telling the mainstream dancers who paid their $10 that they have to sit out one tip because you want to dance a plus tip, maybe you should pay $15 or something. But I have seen some clubs where they do multi-level dances, and it does work. Like the local gay club, they do a local multi-level dance, and it's advertised as a multi-level dance. And the reason why they hold it is so that the club members get to meet and socialize with all of the other members of the club. It's less of a dance and more of a social event. So in that particular case, I kind of think it's okay. The only downside to having that kind of multi-level dance is it's very, very difficult to sort of maintain a sort of a program across multi-levels. Because as your one tip will be a mainstream tip, another tip will be a advanced tip, another tip will be a C1 tip, and you just can't keep any kind of program going because your themes just don't work so well. So that's, however, as I said, those particular nights are more about a social get together than it is about square dancing. And they're trying to, build connections within the club. And I get that.
Mike, your 5 minutes are up. Go mow your lawn.
In interest of my wife still loving me, I probably can go.
By the way, thank you again so much for coming, and hopefully you will join us on other Saturdays where we discuss other topics, and so you can give your 2 cents worth on that. It's a
Love
great
Don, thank you.
we've been having.
Thank you for thinking of me. It's nice to see some of you that I've just seen on social media before, and so new faces. I haven't seen Clark Baker in a long time. I haven't seen Brian. COVID's done that to all of us. So thank you guys for jumping on and having the patience with me to get passionate about what we're all passionate about. So
Thank you, Mike.
appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Guys, I have a lawn to mow also, actually things to take to the disposal center, but I will see you guys next week also. I'm gonna bow out.
Well,
Bye.
I have thoughts about product as well, but I'm going to get on with my day and save those for another time. Bye, y'all.